Hi friends, you have probably heard about slavery. You also know that slavery is one of the most cruel and darkest regimes in the history of the world, where people are trafficked and treated like cattle. But if you only know that, you already know too little, so in this video, let's learn about slavery in detail and completeness. Let's get started. First of all, what is slavery? You can simply understand, slavery is a regime in which the existence of slaves is legal and recognized by countries around the world. You can buy, sell and own slaves without fear any police come to handcuff you. Currently, although there are still many people trafficked into slavery, kept in secret, especially in Asian countries, however, we do not call it slavery because it is forbidden by law. If the police find out, they will save the slaves and imprison the masters immediately. So when did slavery come into being? Actually, this is a very difficult question to answer. Historians say that slavery was born with the formation of states, i.e. more than 10,000 years ago, and the hunting period, gathering will not survive slavery. However, slavery is most clearly identified only from the Mesopotamian and Sumerian civilizations located in the Iran, Iraq region between 600 and 2000 BC. The oldest known written reference to slavery is the Hammurabi Code of 1754 BC. Then why was slavery born? We can simply understand that in society there are always strong people and weak people. Of course, the strong will dominate the weak. In today's modern society, the law protects everyone's rights equally. That is, the weak are also protected by the law, but in ancient society, no one stood up to protect the weak. They are dominated, managed and forced to work by powerful people, otherwise there is only one way to die. Most countries in the world have slavery, but slaves in each place and period are treated differently. There are areas where slaves are treated very well, they are well fed, provided with clothing and shelter. Only one thing is that they lose their freedom, can't run away, can't make their own decisions about their lives, but there are also slavery systems that are very miserable. For example, famous works such as the Great Wall of China, the Suez Canal, and the Pyramids of Egypt all use tens of thousands of slaves. They were forced to work to exhaustion, were treated cruelly. If they don't work, they will be beaten. If they can't work, they will be removed and buried. They are almost not considered human, just like cattle raised for labor. When their working capacity is exhausted, they will be eliminated. Although it has existed for a long time, the slave trade has only been strong since 1380, after the plague ravaged Europe, making labor scarce. Europeans bought slaves from Middle East and North Africa about to use. Between the 15th and 19th centuries, more than 12.4 million people of color fell victim to slave ships across the Atlantic. Millions of people from all over Africa were gathered in port cities to be shipped across the Atlantic. After being shaved off their heads and stamped, slaves would be chained together, the chains on the slaves' bodies ingrained into the skin, causing sores and infections. The more slaves, the more money. So the slaves were crammed to the point of being unable to move, and even because the space to house the slaves was so precious, the ship owners didn't even bother to design the toilets. That is a waste of space. The slaves will be chained together, so they only have to deal with it on the spot. As a result, these poor people who weren't supposed to be human had to sleep on their waste dumps. Precisely because such poor living conditions caused many people to die from plague, dysentery was one of the fears of many slaves on the ship. A former surgeon on a slave ship described the scene at that time. Under the deck, covered with blood and mucus as a result of dysentery, the place was moldy and stinking like a slaughterhouse. In addition to dysentery, flu, measles, malaria and smallpox were also common on these ships. Many slaves decided to kill themselves because they could not stand the pain. On average, each ship would have 20% slaves never set foot on land again. After death, their bodies will be thrown into the sea. At least 2 million people have been forever lying on the ocean floor so far. Any slaves that died in transit would have reduced profits, so the crew did their best to keep as many slaves on board as possible. The slaves were forced to eat to stay healthy. If they didn't eat, they would be beaten. But what if they were beaten and still wouldn't eat? The answer is that they will be forced to open their mouths with a tool called a speculum. Then the food will be crammed straight down the throat. On slave ships, African men and women were not allowed to come into contact with each other, while men were chained in chains below deck, while women and girls were kept above. Although they did not have to endure a life of unsanitary conditions, they were sexually abused by the crew. When the ship docked, the slaves would be put on the market as a commodity. Today, some 40 million people are still living in slavery, cruel treatment, and loss of their future, many of them victims of human trafficking or being detained by their loved ones in secret areas. These actions are condemnable and must be punished by law. What do you think about this issue? Let's discuss together. Thank you for watching the video. If you like the video, please like, share and leave a comment below the video. Goodbye and see you again.